session, but we're also having a briefing session on the Gawler Aquatic Centre. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So tonight's presentation is an information session pursuant to Section 90A of the Local Government Act 1999. So an information session is for information gathering. It's an informal gathering of elected members. It must not be dealt with in such a way as to obtain or effectively obtain a decision on any matter. Information sessions are open to the community, and this session is also being streamed. Following the conclusion of this briefing session, we will have a mandatory induction session, which is mandatory. Did I say mandatory? 3 times. Okay. This training session will not be open to the public because it's a training session. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I think most people are here. So, Bryce, if you'd like to start your presentation, Bryce Norton, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Bryce, and tell us who you are, what your role is, and what you're doing.
Thank you, Mayor Edmund. So yes, Bryce Norton, been in the town of Gawler for 10 years. So my current role is the manager of strategy. I've had a significant experience in the organisation with the Aquatic Centre, the Sport and Community Centre, and so recreation, facility management and planning. And so tonight's session, good start. Tonight's session is about the Gawler Aquatic Centre, as sort of been outlined there. So the briefing is relative to key infrastructure projects that are happening at the centre at the moment or are being considered for at the moment. The first of those being the filtration system for the 50-metre pool. And the second one is around the opportunities to investigate options for heating also for the 50-metre pool at the Aquatic Centre. So these are 2 quite major.
Just one moment. I'll ask people to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Right,
sorry.
Thank you. So these are 2 quite major and complex projects. So we're taking the opportunity here to provide as much information to members, both existing and new, in regards to this project here. Information has been provided prior to the session in regards to previous reports that have been presented to council. So we'll talk through those tonight as well. Really, this is an opportunity to provide that information, as I said, get as much context provided for members in the lead up to a decision being presented to council at the 13th of December meeting. So. All that time.
Is it working? Has it been charged? It's working. Awesome.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm just going to go through a few key considerations in regards to these projects. So these key considerations are predominantly taken from the September 22 council report that was presented to council. The decision at the night was for a deferral to be represented to the new council. These are based on the recommendations from that report, although they have sort of been updated in particular relative to project timelines and operational impacts. So as I said, there will be a report presented to the 13th of December council meeting. So that's sort of the context behind why we're doing this. A key part of this is the idea that we've investigated opportunities around electrical heat pump technology to be utilised for the 50-metre pool. So we've done a bit of a feasibility assessment around that idea and how that could work specific to the requirements of the Aquatic Centre here. A key thing that came out of that was it was determined that at this point in time, it is not feasible at all to fully electrify the heating of pool water at the Aquatic Centre. The electrical requirements, the cost make it prohibitive at this point. But there is an opportunity to utilise a hybrid option for the 50-metre pool only, which looks to utilise the existing gas heater and also a single electric heat pump. So in regard to the hybrid heating solution, the estimation is that that will see a 60% reduction in gas consumption and the associated greenhouse gas emissions that come with that. Although as we sit here right now and going forward, it's important to note that all electricity for that site is sourced from the grid. So with that scenario there is a comparable level of emissions that will occur until renewable electricity can be sourced and utilised for the site there. Secondary to that is the operation of the hybrid heating solution will have an increased annual energy and maintenance cost in regards to operating the 50-metre solution as compared to the current solution. Some of these things that I'm raising here, they'll be sort of expanded on throughout the presentation to get a bit more detail behind those. So the plan is, and this was presented in the September report, to finalise the 50-metre plant room design incorporating pressurised filtration system, as well as that hybrid heating solution, in a way that it would allow for a filtration only installation if that was the decision of council ultimately. So the next step after the finalisation of the design was to undertake a formal procurement process to deliver those works and then come back to council with the outcomes of that, the cost outcomes, the timeline outcomes with that. So council were able to make it as an informed decision as possible. And that would be presented back to council in the way of the two options, the filtration, hybrid and required building works, but also just the filtration and required building works as well. So council would be able to make that determination with that additional information. The indicative design and procurement timeline as we sit here today will not allow for capital works to be undertaken during the 2023 Gawler Aquatic Centre off-season based on the two dot points that precede that there. The outcome of that indicative design and procurement timeline would be that the requirement would be to operate the 50-metre pool outside of the South Australian public health regulations for the turnover, as has happened in the last two seasons, for that 23-24 season again. And I'll expand on both of those points. They're obviously key points to this going forward. So just a quick overview of the facility. So it's very timely that we're having this conversation today. Happy birthday, Gawler Aquatic Centre. It is 60 days to 60 years today that the facility opened. So yeah, 1962, and that provides a bit of context to some of the things we're saying. A level of the infrastructure down there is the original infrastructure. The plant room for the 50-metre pool is it's had a couple of paint jobs, but it is very much as was constructed in the early 60s. So the facility has three heated pools down there. We have the main 50-metre pool, which is really the topic of tonight's, the focus of tonight's presentation. Also a learners and a toddlers pool as well. So last season, showing there that there were 60,420 visitations to the facility, which given the COVID challenges that occurred last year is a remarkable achievement. And that was just short of 3% up on the previous year. What has in the last few years, and will no doubt continue as well, is the increasing requirement and desire to quantify the value of aquatic recreation and community facilities, both from an economic and health and wellbeing perspective. So there's a number of measures and metrics that are used in that sort of that space as well. The one that's quoted on the slide there that shows that for the last season, there's between $6.5 and $14 million of health and wellbeing benefits is a recent and local metric that is being utilised there that the Barossa Council identified when they were making some deliberations in regards to the new War Memorial Pool for identifying that $7 to $15 of health and wellbeing benefits are provided for every dollar that council is investing into that facility, and it is applicable very closely to other community and recreation facilities as well. The last point there identifies that the management and the operation of public aquatic facilities, Gawler Aquatic Centre obviously, is governed and managed by the South Australian Public Health Act and the subsequent regulations. They are very detailed in terms of what they require facility operators, managers to do in regards to operating facilities, from pH of water to testing requirements. And in particular, in the context that we're discussing here, is that the turnover in the body of water is required to be turned over every 6 hours. Just a quick snapshot of the financial information. So they're actuals for last season. And I guess the key takeaway there is, $430,000 income, $930,000 expenditure, which does include depreciation, building maintenance. So for the facility, the depreciation bill is just north of $120,000. So with all of those there, it is an operating deficit of just over $500,000 last year. And based on the attendances, that's a subsidy per visit that council provides of $8.33 in that space there. This year's capital budget has approximately $475,000. As I said, we're discussing and presenting here in regards to those two infrastructure considerations, with the precursor of this being a direction and providing that context for the 13th of December. So this year, I'm just going to talk through the various elements of this project, how they have their own standalone considerations, but also are very much intertwined with each other. So for context, the two photos on the left-hand side there, that is the 50-metre the 50-metre filtration system. It's an open top gravity sand filter. So sand goes in there and the water comes in, is filtered out and goes back into the return line. It is a very low-tech but incredibly effective way for filtering pool water. The unfortunate thing is that with our system at the moment, as I said, it isn't quite turning that water over fast enough. The fancy blue sort of rocket ship on the right there, that's the type of pressurized filtration system that we're looking to install going forward. It's a very well used and well reviewed piece of equipment across the aquatic industry. It's the Bender Neptune Benson filter. So in regards to the pool filtration and where we've got to at this point here, we were planning for 2021 off-season works. And prior to the end of the season, looking at what we were doing, starting to scope those things up there, and identified that the actual volume of water within the pool appeared to be greater than what we had previously been looking at. That was confirmed following the pool season closing and able to do some additional testing while it wasn't operating. So through the system, through that testing, we were able to determine that the system has 1.589 million litres of water in it, which was an increase of 189,000 litres, which is causing our problem here and not being able to turn that over. So I guess the reason that miscalculation and that increase has occurred is that over time, in a number of projects we have undertaken have fixed leaks, and we've done that in various numbers of ways. So we've solved the problem of dumping or losing 55 to 60,000 litres of water every day through leaks, and this is sort of a follow-on outcome of that there. So the options that were identified to address that at that time were to reduce the volume of water, or to fix the capacity of the filtration and get that going so it could be done in a quicker manner. Unfortunately, the only way to achieve that increase in capacity was a new filter. The existing filter can't do that. In the absence of any engineering solution, and we went through everything possible, the idea was to operate the facility outside of the pool regulations, the public health regulations at that time. And that was the flavour of those July and August 2021 reports. So the outcome of that being that put forward to council to utilise what is a water quality risk management plan to look at how to mitigate the risks in operating the facility outside of those regulations. There's always going to be an inherent risk in operating a public aquatic facility, but what could we do to, I guess, mitigate those risks as much as possible? We did a huge amount of work in regards to developing and having that independently reviewed by multiple people from an environmental health perspective, but also from a water chemistry perspective. And at this point at the time, and now we're operating under that management regime, there are a number of risk mitigation approaches that are being implemented within that plan, highlighted, I guess, by the expanded water testing regime that we have on the facility. So that includes microbiological testing, which is not required in South Australia and is definitely not undertaken across the industry. We undertook that for the first time, and we worked sort of providing liaising with SA Health in regards to that there. We've provided them with our experiences our information in regards to that testing regime. SA Health are looking to implement that when they update the regulations in the future, and that would sort of be in line with most of the other Australia, which does call for that there. And the water quality risk management plan itself is utilised in other states of Australia for the management of additional risk to the public aquatic facilities, to the point, and even in Victoria, it is actually part of their regulations in operating facilities. So pool water heating, the other side of this coin. So there was a report presented to Council in August 2020 with initial consideration around utilising heat pump technology to reduce gas use at the aquatic centre. That is obviously aligned to the goal and the actions that on the board there in regards to the Climate Emergency Action Plan, which talks about the zero use of natural gas at council facilities. We've undertaken the feasibility analysis with that, and also done an incredible amount of analysis and liaising and discussions across the industry in regards to other people's experiences with this sort of technology, noting that within a public aquatic facility environment in South Australia, there is a limited application of electric heat pumps as we speak today, and in particular in regards to outdoor pools, and very much no outdoor pool at this point that has 1.6 million litres of water is heated through that sort of system at the moment. So we spoke to people, the facility managers at the Fleurieu Regional Aquatic Facility between Victor and Gawler. They have heat pump technology. Also spoken and liaised a lot with Burnside, who are going through a similar exercise that we have here as well. The Aquadome have just ticked off a year in operating the facility down there, over a year now, just gone, with both heat pumps and a gas system, and also aware that the Salisbury redevelopment that's occurring will be utilising heat pump technology in the future. In regards to utilising heat pump technology and very much of some of the initial thoughts and fears around it, all of the investigations that we've done for this technology here and how we would apply it here are all to ensure that the standards and the service level that is provided at site now will be maintained. And that is the ability to maintain temperature, the ability to start up at the beginning of the year and not have a negative impact around those things. 22nd of February this year, so there was a report presented to Council seeking Council direction, and that was around looking at the scope and timelines of where the project was going at that time. Council resolved the second option there, which was to prioritise the investigation of the heat pumps and the feasibility together and the filtration together, sorry. So that's where we are today. So from a heating consideration, and this is taken predominantly from the 27th September report again. So there's a couple of key considerations here. There's a couple of slides after that will go a bit more detail. But the first point there that, as mentioned earlier, approximately 60% reduction in gas consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. But as I said, obviously there's a comparable level of emissions without that ability to source renewable electricity at this point. And the second point being the annual operation costs. That's both from an energy and maintenance perspective. It increased by approximately $15,000. In that sort of space at the moment, it's important to note that that is based on rates for both electricity and gas pre the season we're sitting in right at the moment. We are likely to experience increases in both of those. The expectation being gas increasing at a higher rate than electricity. So those costs there will change over time, and they will be subject to us continuing to monitor those there in regards to what the costs are for the existing gas only system, but then the hybrid as well. To model that there will also be, and in particular in the first season, if we were to operate in a hybrid solution, there will be an unknown in regards to what the ratio is of gas use versus electricity use. And that's influenced by external factors such as a string of cold mornings will increase gas use in terms of that there. So this table here provides a bit of the dollars and the financials around the two different heating options that are sitting out there at the moment. So the top part of that talks about the capital costs. So the capital cost for heating using the existing gas heating, there's no additional capital costs that come with that there at this point in that table. So from a heat pump perspective, the estimation is that's a $250,000 investment. Also, to design the plant room to incorporate heat pump technology, that is also been identified as an estimate of $20,000. It is noted there that the table doesn't provide for plant room modifications and construction costs. Both options will have a level of modification and construction costs come to them, but it would be reasonable to suggest that the building cost, whether they're maintenance or construction, sort of modification or construction, would be higher for a heat pump solution than just the maintaining the status quo. So from an operational perspective, that provides a little bit more of a breakdown in regards to that increase from an annual perspective, identifying both an energy increase and a maintenance cost. The maintenance cost comes about because we're operating two systems for the 50-metre pool. This slide here just provides additional detail in regards to emissions and comparing the gas versus the hybrid solution there. As I said, that will be influenced and change in regards to the specific operational requirements. And there is a challenge in regards to getting the most out of a hybrid solution. There are some incredible ways to get a hybrid solution utilising a very smart BMS system to get great outcomes out of that there. The Aquadome has a very good example of that there. So the Aquadome has electrical heat pumps as their major source of heating, but also has gas boosters as well. So the BMS system and in other areas has the ability to vary set points to allow the pool to build mass, thermal mass within there. So to maintain temperature. That being said, you build the temperature up at times where electricity, if you're using that, is cheap. Or in their case down there, they've got solar, so they can utilize that there to allow those things to occur. And also being able to look at what the actual cost of electricity versus gas is at any time and utilize smart technology to work out which one is more financially beneficial to be utilizing. In terms of the status and future considerations, again, this is identifying the report to the 13th of December. And sort of talking through that report will be predominantly the 27th of September report, although we'll have some commentary in regards to the relative operation of the 50-metre pool filtration system that's occurred this season, and also providing a clear outline of what these indicative timelines are that could be sort of foreshadowed. Noting that the 3 months that have occurred or since September are not just a time for time perspective in this scenario here. So we've now sort of touched base again with our consultants in regards to, you know, if we are going to go down this path, when they can be available to do this work. So that's sort of influenced here in this indicative timeline. So based on utilising the methodology that's identified in the 27 September timeline, September report, which is finalising the design, the expectation is that design now to develop a plant room design for filtration and the heat pump wouldn't be completed till April next year. We would then undertake procurement during May, come back to council in June with an outcome of that procurement, and then engage a contractor in July. So obviously looking at that timeline there with the Aquatic Centre opening first weekend in October traditionally, it doesn't allow for that to occur within that off season. There are a number of pieces of plant within here, regardless of which option there are, that have lead times of up to 4 months. So that is also something to consider in there. It is also something that has sort of come to light, looking at more this and speaking to the contractors recently, is that the next 18 months is potentially the busiest time in the public aquatic facility construction industry of recent times. when you're looking at Salisbury, Paynham, Mount Barker as major facilities, as well as others doing things along the way as well. That really there is just the key considerations again, and I think happy to take questions now if anyone's got them.
David, thank you, Bryce, for that presentation. David Hughes, Councillor Hughes.
Thanks, Mayor. My question is regarding the life of the current gas system. My understanding.
You want that slide that you were going to ask a question on up?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go back. Go back.
My understanding is our
That
current,
one?
Yeah, our current asset management plan is the life of the asset. We don't replace it until it stops. But we could have another 10 years or more with this gas system at the moment. And in the meantime, yeah, we have been operating without pumping enough water through as well. So is that correct, that the gas system is still fine?
Bryce?
Yes, 100%. So the gas boiler that operates a 50-metre pool is expected to have a lifespan of another 5 seasons, including, 4 seasons after this one. So we'd be looking around that sort of replacement window.
Okay.
That
and David, thank you, Bryce. And David, you've got another question.
Yeah, and the replacement cost for a hybrid system was from September, I think it was a couple of $100,000, and then the operating costs were at least 40,000. You've dropped it down to 15 or something this time.
So you've got 250 for capital cost for a hybrid system. That's correct, isn't it? Yep. David, can you explain your question? Sorry, Bryce, I'll just go back to David for a minute.
I'm just double checking. These are the same figures that were presented previously?
Bryce?
Yes, they are. So they're the same figures. So the capital cost that's been estimated for the heat pump is the $250,000 in the top right there. The energy cost is $56,000, which is a approximate increase of $13,000.
That's not current though, is it?
That's for the hybrid. So the current existing gas heater is the $43,452.
But you said previously that you were basing it on earlier figures, not current figures. Is that right?
Correct. So yes, that they are based on the rate prior to this season here. Both of those. So for comparison, that they are the same rate that's being used, same time that those rates are being used for.
Okay. Okay. You had your hand up, Councillor Koch. Thank you, Councillor Hughes and Bryce.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is, if all things being equal and we get our debt down, what year are we looking at to do a whole revamp of the pool?
Bryce? There we go.
I believe the current long-term financial plan is 27, 28, 29. So 27, 28, 28, 29. Okay,
thank you. And you had another question?
A couple of questions.
Yeah.
You talked about, I suppose one of the big reasons is that we want to get our greenhouse gases down. And I think before we looked at, we were going to get 100% renewable accredited renewable energy. That didn't quite happen. What strategy are you looking at to have 100% renewable accredited power to run the hybrid system?
Bryce? So I think that,
because that seems to be the reason behind why we want to go down this way, because actually in the climate emergency plan, the 2025 idea to get to zero emissions is actually only an aspirational plan. To actually reduce our gases is only an actual aspiration plan. So when you put it up there, I didn't see the words aspirational. So it actually looked like that's what we had to do, that we actually agreed to get there, but it's actually aspirational. Is that right?
the plan is an aspirational plan.
Yes,
That's
so,
what we were told.
Yes. So
Yes.
when that went up, it actually said the plan is to get to zero gas consumption by 2025, but that's actually not quite right, because it actually is an aspirational goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay. Right. At the
I think that's right, isn't it, Bryce?
Yeah, it's aspirational.
I'll just
Through
Bryce?
yes, all I did in that instance there was take out that one specific sentence in regards to that there, which is the goal that is being aimed towards. And this is part of that there, yes.
Sorry, there we go.
Yep.
Yep.
The next one, you talked about a BMS. Could you explain that? I have a different view of what a BMS is. Can you explain what a BMS is?
Thank you, Bryce. Hang on. I'll let Bryce explain. Just turn your mic on again, Bryce. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, so a BMS being a building management system. So a building management system can be, quite simplistic in regards to how it controls air conditioning. You could say that the automatic light system is a building management system. And then you can take that through to the other end of the scenario there in terms of being very sophisticated and being able to look at the point where you can have a camera in a facility, tell you how many people are in the pool, and you will then use that information to not only look for swimmers in distress, but also look at how you temper back the rate of your variable speed drives to save electricity or save energy, whether you're reducing that by 2% or 4%. That's the extreme at that end there, but there are those things there that get the most out of systems like this.
Thank you for that. Is that enough? Okay. Councillor Solomon, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify a couple of those things. So obviously the council's previously spoken about a revamp of the pool in 27, 28 and 29. What would be included in a revamp? What does that cover?
So if you go to that picture, Bryce, that you had up further, there has been a concept plan done, and that was a number of years ago. I think it might be wise to circulate that, Bryce, because with our new council members, they would not be aware of that work that was done. It's part of incorporating into the master plan as well. But there is an actual concept plan of what that entails. So if you look at that picture, there's the outdoor pool, which you can see, the 50 metre, the big rectangle, the dark blue. You've got an indoor pool under the main roof, which is the white structure, and you've also got club rooms going around that would be joint club rooms with the tennis association. So there's a whole range of elements that is contained in a concept plan. It's only a concept plan, and that has informed part of the master plan for the Essex Park precinct all the way along to the showgrounds. Which is something like a $144 million investment. If that stuck in my head, don't know why, but it's a significant investment over a long period of time. So this is, and the previous council put up two priorities. One was Essex Park, or the pool, the aquatic centre redevelopment incorporating tennis, but also Carbeathan, two top priorities of sport and recreation in the previous council term. So because it was recognised that these facilities are ageing, certainly it would require external funding, etc., to realise these types of improvements. So I suggest we circulate that, Bryce, so that all elected members can get upskilled or refresh their memory on that piece of work. That might be the best way to go. There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you. That would be good to have a look at that, because I guess the question I was trying to get at is that going to save money? But if there's grants involved, if there's other things happening at the same time, that might well be the case. But we'll wait till I read the report. Just to follow up from that, one other thing which was mentioned by Councillor Kosh was that the reasoning behind doing this now is there. Can we make a definitive statement about what the reasoning is for doing it now, or is that something that's less clear?
in regards to the investigations of the heating part of this. So the filtration is obviously borne out by the turnover requirements. In regards to the heating, is that the question? So the heating is in response to the report that was presented to council previously to investigate this as an opportunity.
So
council-
we have here, all those reports that have been provided. And do you get that on the hub, Isaac? Is Isaac getting his information electronically? But you don't know how to manage, you don't know how to access it, do you? Yeah, because I've got it, so I'm making an assumption that everybody got it. Did everybody get this? Did everybody get this? Either electronically or? So I just need to clarify, because the whole point of sending this through was that we would have a look through. And I just need to know that you actually received it. If you haven't, it makes it a little bit difficult. So if you can tell me whether you received it, Isaac.
Yeah, I mean, I'll follow that up, because I think the notifications, I've received a few things, but I couldn't find a notification for that. So I'll follow that up to make sure that I'm getting everything.
Yeah, I think that might be useful. That's, yeah, sorry about that, Isaac. I thought you had received it. Councillor Hennessy. Oh, what was? Oh, right. Sorry, Bryce, your turn. Your turn, back to you.
So the investigations that are occurring around the utilisation of electric heat pumps is in regards to the idea that was presented to council in August 2020. And the resolution that came out of that was to investigate the feasibility of utilising that at the facility, which is what we're doing and what we've done at the moment.
So it was as a result of a council resolution, Councillor Solomon. Thank you. Okay, now, Councillor Hennessy, I think you're next.
Yes, thank you. And yes, there is a lot of background to this, and yes, I've read through them, but I'd like to see that we have a consolidated report of everything that's gone on, because it is quite complex, and there was bits missing in our education. So for example, I am aware of the conceptual plan, and I understand why it was created to put us in a good position to go out and seek funding, but I'm very much aware that it hasn't gone out to public consultation. And there is already some.
Oh, yes, it did. I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Okay, so we've
But
got
it's
some problems in the community already with this. So lack of access from Williston to the train station is cut off by some of that infrastructure. So I just, it's important we do it. It's also important to understand what our options are, because it's quite clear that we have one thing we definitely need to do, and the other one, there is some timing as well as different options.
Yeah.
So I just need to have it all consolidated, so that when we go to when we discuss this with community members, it's not, 4 very long reports. It needs to be brought together so we can deal with it.
I think the
succinctly.
concept plan is quite important, so people understand it.
Absolutely.
And also maybe a process of what was undertaken at that time
That
would
would be
help
useful as
elected
well.
members as well.
Yep. But when you look at it, people just be aware that it's we've got some problems with that as well.
Yes, I did actually raise that at the time. I don't think it quite got in the plan, but yeah, there's a walkway that everybody uses, everyone, to get to the main street from Williston, and that's gone. Right, now, I think I saw Jim, Cody, and then Councillor Launer, in that order. Thank you.
This is a bit of a follow-up from a bit of Isaac's here about that. This is a question to you, Bryce. Is there consideration in solar panels?
I think solar panels are different. Yeah.
So there has been some consideration of solar panels on site there. The building doesn't have the structural capacity to put a significant level on site. the expectation would be that, yes, that site there, given its incredible roof space, would be a perfect opportunity for that there. Also looking, is there the opportunity to utilise some of the car park space, not only to provide shade, but also to utilise that for housing of solar panels.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
So, well, I guess firstly, just following up on that, would that mean that after we have our renovation of the pool, having a hybrid solution would gradually potentially become more feasible to easily procure electricity?
You'd think so. If particularly looking at that space on that roof, I would have thought it might, but it might, it's still a significant amount of energy that is required to heat, particularly that 50-metre pool. But remember that 50-metre pool would be redesigned without a deep end. It's the deep end that is the problem because it's massive and I don't know how deep it is, Bryce, it's about 4 metres, something like 4 metres deep. So that's the problem with our pool. And it's quite different to the Aquadome, to any new pool, and particularly Victor Harbour, which is a 25-metre pool indoor. It might be 8 lanes, but it's 25 metre and it's indoor and it's flat. There's no deep end. So that's our challenge. Yeah.
And my next question is just around, just back onto that page about the costs. So it's listing 0 capital cost for existing gas heating, but obviously part of the question that's come up is that we need to replace that in 4 or 5 years. So presumably there is a capital cost to continuing with gas heating and a lifespan of that. Like what's the situation with, for example, if we replace it with gas heating, is that going to be is that going to be a 30 years before we're able to replace it again, for example? And what's the lifespan of the hybrid one? That's sort of the part of this that I'm sort of missing the context for.
So it's using the existing gas and adding heat pumps. So the heat pumps is 250,000. So the heat pumps are 250,000. We're using the existing gas. Gas will need to be replaced, according to Bryce, 4 or 5 seasons. Okay. So what's the cost of replacing? Because you still need gas if you have the existing pool. So what's the cost of that, Bryce?
So I would say an estimated cost to replace on a like for like is approximately $400,000 to $500,000. An important consideration would be that by having a hybrid solution, you would extend the life of that existing gas boiler just due to its reduced use, its reduced wear and tear. So it would be able to, and obviously we'd be monitoring that on an ongoing basis, but there would be every likelihood that could have an extended life up to 7 or 8 years.
So,
all of these things being
so
considered.
It would be 8 seasons, not 5?
It could be. It definitely could be in terms of that reduced workload that it would be having.
But you're not sure.
Yeah, I couldn't definitely say that based on, what that use is going to be because
Yeah.
it will work out. And again, we would have to be doing the
So
same sort of process.
Might want to take that on notice, maybe. Maybe that might be something you can take on notice in regard to that. So, Councillor Davies?
Yeah, well, I guess I would like to see, because that's a pretty huge, we're looking at these financial considerations and we're just finding out now that by using hybrid, we could be extending the lifespan on something that's going to cost $400,000 to replace, for example. Like, it feels like, we need much more detail before this becomes something that we can accurately just say this is more expensive than this.
250,000. We still have to spend 250.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I'm just saying we're missing a lot of the information on costs that are bigger than the combined costs of anything on here,
Yes, I tend to agree. Who's next? I think Councillor Launer, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to step back onto one of your slides there. You had a cost of $478,000 on project management.
So
Is
that
that
was the cost of the pool, was it? Was that one? Is that one?
Capital budget, okay, including project management. Okay. Do we ever break down on the project management side of it?
I'll just, Bryce? Oh, Wendy. Okay, Wendy Young.
Hi, yes, councillor Lorna, all our budgets are broken down into their capital expenditures, so materials and wages, and then the project management, both internal and external, is also separated out.
So, but that didn't answer your question, did it?
I can't give you the specifics without, I'd have to go back and have a look at the annual business plan to see what the exact project management cost out of that is at the moment.
So we'll take that on notice
Take
and
it on
maybe
notice.
circulate that. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Yes, keep going.
Right, we've got the Aquadome that have already done this. Have we got any analysis from them on the serviceability of it? Breakdowns? How do we get people back to attend to these units?
So the conversation we had, and we actually visited the Aquadome yesterday in regards to that there. So they're still in the warranty period up until the end of this week. But they have had, bar a couple of initial teething problems, they have had good response in regards to the servicing of those there and the ability to have some of it serviced by air conditioning mechanics, given the nature of what the actual plant is. There is some that can be sort of maintained in that way there. And that was a conversation that we had with the operator of the Aquadome. So not only the City of Playfair, but also Bluefit there in terms of their serviceability, as you've suggested, that it is something that doesn't cause significant problems in terms of being able to find qualified people that can maintain them.
Good question. Do you have another question, councillor Lowner?
Sorry, yes. Probably more about the solar. Obviously with your solar going down, I'll start again here actually. We're looking at these heat pumps lasting 4 or 5 years. We do this, we might get another 7 or 8 years. We're looking at doing a full revamp on it in 6 years anyway. And then we'd be looking at putting in your solar and all that as part of that project. People need to be very aware that just putting solar on is not going to give you 0 emissions.
No.
You don't get power at night.
Yeah.
So, you'd be looking at the full battery setups and all that to go with as well. That's something you guys are taking in on board, and is the current infrastructure that I seen you put a new pad mount transformer there. Has that been taken into account for additional needs to run solar?
Good question.
At this point, at this point, we're not considering solar installation on site at the moment. It's, as you say, we've got a site there that could be completely redeveloped in 6 years' time. There has been some modelling done in regards to, size of roof, available spaces that could suggest that it would be able to maintain or be able to obtain the power it requires for its operation. All of those things would be a consideration detailed within any design, any concept of a fully redeveloped or a significantly redeveloped site. At this time, we're not investigating solar on site.
Thank you, councillor Lana. I'll go to councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. A question, Bryce. So going off a little bit what councillor Lana and councillor Davies said, if with a full redevelopment in 6 years' time, does any of the infrastructure we replace now, whether it's gas or hybrid, will that roll over into that new development, or will whatever we choose be completely scrapped and replaced? Or will, depending on what option we go down, can that be, I guess, carried over into the new development? Or is it just, we're going to completely replace everything anyway, we've got to replace it there and then too?
Bryce?
All infrastructure decisions and considerations for the site are being made with 27, 28 timeframe in mind. So if a heat pump was installed at the site in the off season of 2024, it would be something that could be utilised in a new facility. That being said, obviously the heater that's there at the moment, if nothing was to occur and we would continue to utilise gas heating up until 2028, that would be, pretty well approaching its end of life. So obviously that would be the assessment at that time. It'd be unlikely that would go into a brand new facility. So that would be part of the consideration. But all of these decisions we're making, even down to the Neptune Benson filter there, is a piece of plant that can be utilised and is being utilised in brand new facilities that are being constructed in Adelaide.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mayor. So just following up from that, maybe if it would be possible to send out to elected members the, I guess, expected lifespan of whether we keep the existing gas system as you're saying now, that might reach its end of life in that 6 or 7 years. But if we went with the hybrid option, what are we looking at, I guess, lifespan wise going
So we want
forward?
complete costs. I think that's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
yes.
Sort
yeah.
of comprehensive
Mm.
costs of, you know, having to replace the gas. Because that will probably coincide with a redevelopment, I would suspect.
For sure. yes.
And yeah, what that might look like. And I'm just considering that you have a 50-metre pool, and if you built a 25-metre indoor pool, you might need a new filtration. I don't look. I suspect you might, because I don't know if it'll fit in that existing structure that is the filtration plant and pumping station there. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question, Bryce.
So on that there, the filtration in the plant room that is there for the 50-metre pool would never be incorporated into a new build down there. But from a filtration perspective, the expectation would be that we could use the new Neptune Benson filter there for a new 50-metre pool. And then we would buy additional similar Neptune Benson filters, potentially smaller ones for program pools and those sorts of things. It's very important that filtration systems are closed systems for each of the pools. So then you can manage the individual pools and, you know, respond as required.
Thank you very much for that answer. Okay, so I'll go to Councillor Samble, then I'll go to Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor Sharon. Bryce, yeah, very interesting topic that's been discussed. I recently had a holiday up at Darwin, and my niece up there swims regularly, and the first thing they did up there was to put a dome cover right over top of the swimming pool, and they're doing it all over South Australia, I noticed, on bowling greens, and it's not an expensive exercise. And the one in Darwin, the whole of the dome is actually solar panels. So, you know, they're actually generating their own power. Out on the Aboriginal missions around the Northern Territory, they certainly don't have the solar panels. They don't need them because of the heat and everything, but it's covered with a special type of plastic, which actually keeps the whole room completely warm and everything. And where I think I'm leading to is that, you know, 60 years ago, the Gawler Apex Club and Harry Brown, who certainly Nathan would know, were the ones that built that pool. And it was always never heated. And it's only in recent years, and everything we've talked about here tonight is because of heating the pool. And I think the question, Bryce, if you may be able to answer, has the increase of membership and users of the pool, has that increased since we've heated the pool?
Yes.
By how much? I've not
Well,
seen.
we had the numbers there, over 60,000 people. 60,000 people in the last 12 months. Is that right, Bryce?
Correct, just over 60,000. The season record is just short of 62,000. So when the pool turned 50, attendances were in the mid 30,000s. So
it's doubled.
That's been driven a lot by programming, promotion, facility.
Yeah, it's been really, the numbers have really clearly doubled, mainly because you've got much better programming, much better flexibility, etc. So many more people are using the pool, so that's fantastic. Oh yeah, absolutely, 500. Yeah. Pools cost money. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I think what we need to just dial back on for a moment is what we're talking about is the heating of the existing facility, and we're also talking about the master plan. Both work together. I have no argument there, but the conversations have always been around these sorts of investments being able to be utilised in the master planning, which is what Bryce is alluding to. I think it is good to be able to hear about the hybrid solution being if we invest $250,000 now and start moving towards that solution of electric heating. It does, one, buy us some more time with the existing infrastructure we do have, because as we know, we're end of life in maybe 4 or 5 years. And then if we're talking about a redevelopment that we're transitioning completely to electricity, how good would that be if the technology allows us to do so? However it is. But I think the point to really nail home is, one, the service level that we provide through our Gawler Aquatic Centre is aligning with some of our other.
So you're debating.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is there a question in there somewhere, Nathan?
No, I'm just trying to give a bit more background. I'm trying to give a bit more background into what it actually, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
How am I going to do it without debating?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just
No,
mindful.
you're absolutely right. All right, leave it with me.
Sorry, I know you were on a roll. You're doing, yeah, I just needed to make a statement there. Sorry. Okay. Have we got any other questions at this time? Of course, you can ask further questions of Bryce and his team leading up to the council meeting, which is on the 13th. So don't be shy in asking questions. We've got a hand up, Councillor Hennessy. Yes.
Thank you. Something I overlooked, the electrical work, has that all been completed? In one of the reports that was a problem, but I'm assuming that has all been fixed, so that's not an issue as well for some extra spending?
That was the transformer out the front that needed to be changed. That was nearly 60 grand. Was that one? Yep.
Yeah, so the site has been upgraded in terms of supply, and that was a consideration in regards to, you know, the identification and review of the hybrid solution in installing only one heat pump on site rather than the full electrification, which would require significant levels of infrastructure upgrade.
I think that addresses the questions. Certainly, you can ask further questions of Bryce and his team. You've got a quick question? Yep, sure.
Yeah, just on that comment about upgrading the power supply, will that be in the procurement study if we do it? Because that sounds like if it's 60,000 for a little transformer, is that going to be in that report as well?
I think you said, Bryce, that you felt that was adequate. Is that what you said?
That's the expectation at this point to install the hybrid solution.
Yes.
We obviously would go through the process of confirming that through detailed design. Yes, but that there, if we were requiring, as I was talking about, a significant upgrade, that would be for a new facility. That would need to fall within that project there.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, I do have a question now. So the aquatic centre that you visited yesterday was about trying to scope out what technology they're having success with for the indoor setup that we're talking about in the master plan, or are you trying to find out if there's anything that we can utilise for our outdoor?
All the above. So yeah, we're looking in terms of obviously it's close, the aquadome there, but it is one of the larger bodies of water that are heated predominantly by electrical heat pumps at this point in time. So we were looking in terms of what their I guess experiences have been over and operating that for the last year. Very much aware, and this has been a thing throughout the entire time. There is no like-for-like example for what we're trying to confirm here at this point. But the more information we can gather, whether the scenarios are different, slightly different, or very different, it's all valuable in terms of looking at that there. So we've asked them in regards to, you know, so as was brought up earlier, their serviceability, things like that, how they work from a requirement of gas boosting, how they work from a startup perspective. Although there's an indoor facility, when they started up, when they reopened last year, that is one of the closer examples that we could get in terms of how it works from filling the pool and starting the season, that we could get in terms of, you know, the environment around. So that there, and the conversations we've had with other facility operators here and interstate, is around us trying to get as much information and take the bits that we can out and see how we can apply those to this scenario here. Again, noting that, you know, every situation is very different.
A lot of the pools that were built in the late 50s, early 60s have been closed down. And the challenge we have is the deep end. The deep end is a problem. And when eventually we get a new pool, we won't have a deep end because we don't have a diving school anymore. You don't need a deep end. You can have it a little bit deeper, bit like I think it's Unley Pool, David Hughes, you know that rather well. You swum up and down that pool many times. And they dropped a brand new pool in and got rid of their deep end. So a lot of the deep ends are gone and purely because they're just so expensive. And that's our challenge is, and rightly, as Bryce has said, it's not like for like. And so we sort of can take advice from the Aquadome because that's probably the closest. It's indoor, it is slightly different because they can control the temperature indoors, but yeah, you lose a lot of heat, a lot of, what is it? When you lose heat from outdoor swimming pools, whatever that is. I don't know the term, but somebody knows the term. But yeah, it is a little bit different, but you can take advice and put that into a bit of perspective around the challenges that we have at our pool. Yeah. Now, yes.
Just so that we're clear relative to this conversation and the report to council, and also referencing the figures in terms of construction costs and the estimates of the prices, which are estimates. When the report comes back to council in September, the intent is not to have a final decision of council. The intent is to seek to go to market, to test the market, to get definitive prices, then report back to council.
There was a slide
on a way forward in that regard. So I just wanted to be clear.
But the council will need to make a choice because there'll be an A or B multiple choice, not a clear direction in the recommendation. Oh, will there? Because in one of these slides, that's not what was said. Just if you go to that slide, you said that we'd have one or the other. No. You had two options. You had two options. That's it. Oh. No, you said you'd said we'd go to procurement for filtration only or go to procurement for heat pump and filtration. That's what you said. Pretty sure. Yeah. Where's that slide? Oh, there you go. Yeah. So is that what's going to go up to council, Henry? I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's taken from the September report, effectively a snapshot of one of the recommendations in there. And it is to undertake the formal procurement process to get a cost for both of those there, to be able to come back to council and say, here we go, we've gone through this process. We can do filtration, hybrid, and the required building works, and it will cost X. Or we can do the filtration and the building works only, and that will cost Y. That will then allow council to make the most informed decision it can.
So we'll have a choice. Okay, just so that we're clear on what we're going to have presented. Okay, thank you, Bryce. That's been quite useful.
Sorry, so that there, the choice for either of those options is not required in December. So that will come back in the new year after the procurement, that then council make that decision at that point there. So in December, the thing is to go, we're going out for procurement to get all of this information to come back to council with.
Okay, thank you. Right, yeah, I know. We'll wait and see what the report tells us. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you very much for your presentation. So now we have What are we doing now?
I was going to do a quick follow along on your screen with the hub.
That'd be great. So if everyone opens their, I'll look on here. So if people can, I beg your pardon? Yes, we will be. Yes. So thank you everyone who